drive some things together for you that will help it to make a little more sense and put it into a context of usability. And to start that conversation, I want to talk with you about something known as epigenetics. Now, this was a really interesting article that was, I had you at epigenetics, didn't I? If only I'd known that from the very beginning, that would have been perfect. This was a really interesting article that was actually published several years ago in Time magazine. What we're all consumed with right now is that we want to close this gap. We want to close the gap in our own health and in our own span for life. And one of the ways that we can do that is to be consumed with epigenetics. And so what is epigenetics? Genes, this is an important thing, genes influence specific health challenges. And at the same time, our lifestyle influences whether or not those challenges will manifest themselves. Epigenetics do not change the context of your DNA. Instead, it changes how your body reads the DNA. It changes how your body is able to react and respond. This is why lifestyle is so important, and at the whole of that, to make this really simple, you already have an epigenetic graph and roadmap. It is called the wellness pyramid. It is lifestyle. These are all the things and all of the elements in lifestyle, and this is your daily approach. Last night, as my wife and I were out enjoying and intermingling with many individuals through the parties that we went to, and then throughout my conversations that I've had with many of you through convention, this is the one element that we seem to be missing. It's not just about what we do with MetaPWR. It has to be how they all congeal and all come together. Now, last year at convention, we changed one of the categories, and we changed it to movement and metabolism. We're changing another one today, and it's going to be reduce exposure and support detoxification. You're going to see changes from time to time for two main reasons. One, sometimes it's a clue to things that might be coming in the future. Secondly, it's an opportunity for you to have an understanding that our products that we speak to you about with regularity fit neatly into this program. Not because of a marketing strategy, but because of the idea that what you do in your lifestyle also projects to what your health outcomes will be. And it's not something I liked yesterday when Nicole said, it's not magic, it's chemistry. Everything that happens in your body is chemistry. Your lifestyle influences chemistry. And it influences at the deepest level that we have within the whole of our body and that framework, which is within the DNA of our very cells itself. And so use this as a marker for you to be able to progress and move forward. You've heard about the value of lifelong vitality. Now, I want to pause here for just a minute and share a couple of other things for you. It's not just about lifelong vitality. There's other things that will help you in this journey for metabolic health as well. For example, our protein shakes or our green shakes. Those are great meal replacements, and they'll help to reduce your caloric load as well as your glycemic load. Getting rid of some of those things that we normally would eat and doing it in a healthy way. Fiber also changes the way that your body manages glucose, and it absorbs more slowly. It's not just only lifelong vitality, but we have tied lifelong vitality to this concept of metabolism for one clear reason. This is micronutrients, and your body has to have appropriate micronutrient density. And taking everything else out for three reasons. Here's the three things you need to know about why lifelong vitality. First, the Microplex VMZ. It's about enzymatic activity. We can spend a lot of time now talking about why also you need Terrazyme, and we can link it to all of these other things. But know that without vitamins and minerals, you're going to be inhibited in the enzymatic activity that you need. And in every single function of what we have for metabolism, it is chemical reaction and response. and that is driven by metabolic enzyme activity. So you need Microplex VMZ. When we talk about the alpha CRS, I know we've always talked about energy, and it does factor into that because it supplies the additional nutrients that your cell needs to proper functionally through those cycles of energy production and other things that happen within the cell. And then lastly, it really is about structure. Lifelong vitality is about structure and function within the cells. And structure because we need membrane fluidity. The outside surface of your cell, that cell membrane, is comprised primarily of fatty acids. And those are critically important because if we don't have them present, then we have plasticity which begins to develop through the cell structure. And that means that my cell not only is limited in its function, but it cannot communicate. Now I have a challenge for you. Statistically, we know how many of you are using Lifelong Vitality. And so I will not ask for a raise of hands. But can I please ask you, if you want to receive the maximum benefit from MetaPWR, to please start using Lifelong Vitality regularly. Now, we were talking about structure, and when we talk about structure, we also need to talk about chemical communication. This is how our cells communicate one with another. You've heard me say it many, many times. Everything that happens in your body is just chemistry. Everything. Not one thing escapes chemistry. And so having the right chemistry, going back to what we talked about earlier, and by the way, those quality standards factor into every product we have in doTERRA. But going back to the essential oils, it's no small and insignificant thing that in every single new product we release to you, there is essential oil. And specifically in the MetaPWR, this is the kingpin of how all of that product works. It's in everything that we do in MetaPWR as well. Now let me tell you why it plays such a critical and such an important role. And it's one primary reason. Essential oils support chemical communication, and they do that by either upregulating or downregulating pathway. Now we can spend a lot of time now talking about the surface of the cell and receptor sites and the glycoproteins that exist there and the messenger molecules, and none of that matters. Know that your cells have to communicate. They have to communicate because I need to know what you need me to do. So think back to Dr. Stevens' research yesterday. I was really excited when she shared that, partially because I know how hard they have worked on those things. Secondly, because of what it represented. You think about when she showed you the MetaPWR blend and the action that it was creating within our adipose tissue, adipogenesis. How did that happen? There's nothing in there but essential oil. It's communication of pathway. Pathway. We have to elicit pathway so that we can have response. And essential oils do that in a way that's natural and that the body is able to receive and react and respond to. It's not that we put oils in MetaPWR because we thought if we didn't, you would say, why don't we have oils in that? We put oils in MetaPWR because oils is the entire crux of having the cascade even begin through pathway. Does that make some sense? It's the perfect union between the two. And so that leads us into this discussion now about MetaPWR. It's meant to be used as an entire system, to look at the entire outcome of what our expectation is. It would be great just to use MetaPWR Advantage all by itself, if that's what you want to do, but it would be better to use all of the MetaPWR products coupled with lifestyle and coupled with lifelong vitality. I want to talk a little bit more about lifestyle. If we summarize this, we would say that lifelong vitality supports the structure. These are your talking points. Lifelong vitality supports cell structure and function through micronutrients. And then on the other side of that, we have the MetaPWR system, which does not contain macronutrients. Macronutrients are the foods that we eat: sugars, carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. And what the MetaPWR does is it gives our body the ability to break down the micronutrients more efficiently so that they're readily available for metabolic process. Does that make sense? And then the essential oils, and why we continue to use the essential oils, is the essential oils support proper communication in upregulating and downregulating specific pathway within the body. The pathways that we're trying to upregulate and downregulate are associated with that whole big map. Remember that big giant map that Dr. Osgood Thorpe showed you? He was so excited about that. He came into my office as he was preparing and he goes, "Look at this. They're all going to be so excited." You created some excitement, all right. I'm not sure what kind it was, but you did create some excitement. The last part I want you to understand is lifestyle. And I'm going to walk you through a little bit more. So this is meant for you. What we did was, we took everything that you've now learned about MetaPWR and we put it in some really easy and some really convenient step-by-step. Here's what I do every single day. Here's how I follow my products. Here's what my lifestyle markers can be. It can be as simple as exercise, or I'm going to change my diet. It can be any number of different things. It's all there for you. It's available right now. So scan the QR code, and it is your beginning point with the journey we're all about ready to go to. Are you excited about that? This will be familiar to you, but it will draw it all together and will help you to make more sense of how not only you're going to progress, but how you're going to go help others to progress. Now, we're going to talk about lifespan for just a minute. Lifespan and health span. And lifespan and health span, and by the way, if you didn't get that, don't worry. We'll make sure that you have it available for you. Lifespan and health span, there's a new medical term which has been developed. And that medical term is called epigenetics. And what they're saying is that it is impossible to separate metabolism from lifestyle choices, because it is about genetic expression. Now, we've learned a lot about NAD and NAD+. By the way, there's NAD+ is NAD, just has a hydrogen atom attached to it, a hydrogen molecule. It'll all go back to NAD. That's just part of the cycle. We know that NAD, among the many different outcomes that it produces within the cell, and by the way, MetaPWR is going to, we know, increase that level. We've showed you the statistical relevance of that through the human studies that we did, and that we'll continue to do. We're not done doing those things. We know that NAD has value. I want to go past what you know and what you understand for just a moment. You have heard me say many, many times, we win and we lose our health one cell at a time. Can I give you some insight into the effect of MetaPWR and the things that we've been talking about at that cellular level? Is that okay? I want to introduce a new protein to you. It's not new in discovery, but it's new to us. And they're called sirtuins. And sirtuins are messenger proteins. And sirtuins have lots of different functions associated with them. One of them is communication, specifically with your DNA. Now, when we look at sirtuins as a category and we see all the different benefits, the one that I really want to highlight is the one that talks about DNA integrity and how they support DNA integrity. This gets to be a little complex and it gets to be a little complicated, so I want you just to listen to me for a couple of moments. I know that when we talk about DNA and we start talking about histones and nucleosomes and how the DNA transcription takes place and all of those things, it gets to be a big pile of goo. I only put that up there so that you could have some relevance to what I'm about to tell you. I do not have a way to illustrate it to you other than just to share, here's what's really happening. I want you to think about what we've talked about. We've talked about lifestyle, we've talked about nutrition, and we've talked about essential oils. Here's how they all tie together. See if you can grasp this. We said that lifestyle was kind of the cornerstone of the foundation of things that we're doing. And when our lifestyle is challenged, either because of stress or because of poor nutritional choices, or just in general poor life choices, or uncontrolled emotional responses, or whatever it happens to be, we know, as you learned already, that metabolic value within the body begins to diminish. Does that make sense? NAD production begins to diminish. Cellular metabolic energy begins to diminish. Sirtuins are dependent on the presence of NAD. So sirtuins also begin to diminish. And that has consequence at the cellular level. Yes, because of the nucleosomes. Yes, because of the histone molecules. Yes, because of acetyl and all of its interaction with those things. But here's the point. When sirtuins aren't present, what you're looking at here is an illustration of how our cell's DNA really needs to do two things. Our cells need to do two things. One is our DNA needs to replicate. And two, our cells need to communicate. And they communicate through chemistry. Your DNA needs to be protected. And the reason why it needs to be protected is because, among other things, we have internal stressors. We have metabolic oxidation that occurs as we go through this process, and it's damaging to your DNA. We also have external factors that are damaging to your DNA. And we have suppression of this system, your DNA becomes exposed. And when it becomes exposed, not only is it under transcription, but it can transcribe metabolic errors or cellular errors within that transcription because it's susceptible to damage, like oxidation. Does that make some sense? So what we're talking about with this MetaPWR system is that when we upregulate our lifestyle and we try to make better choices and we try to do the things that we're supposed to, that cascade looks very different. Instead, that cascade is we have adequate amounts of NAD and the other metabolic cofactors that we need so that our body functions appropriately metabolically. And that does include all we've talked about, like lifelong vitality and the other nutrients that I gave some suggestion to today. When we look at those together and NAD is present, sirtuins are present. And as a messenger protein, it has lots of effects, but within the DNA itself, it has one primary effect. It removes the acetyl group from off of a histone tail, and it then winds very tightly, and it is protected. And we do less cell damage. So when we talk about closing this gap between lifespan and health span, it happens at the cellular level. And you cannot go through that process unless you link all of these things together. It is about micronutrients. It is about our body being able to metabolize macronutrients more efficiently. It is about the essential oils and the communication that they bring. And it is about our lifestyle. When we look at metabolism, when we look at the opportunity that's ahead of us, it is magnificent. I myself have been on my own metabolic journey. I've lost 15 pounds. I've been riding my bike between 15 and 20 miles every day. Okay, don't get too excited. It does have an electric assist on it, I will confess. Because if I don't, my wife is going to somehow find you and say, it's an electric bike, it's really not that big of a deal. But in my defense, I only use it when I feel like I have to. Otherwise, it's just me. But I figure it's better to keep movement than to quit.